If you have small children with you right now and you're playing this over the car on the YouTube, first off, smash that subscribe button. Maybe you skip ahead about 2 minutes because we're about to have a real adult conversation.
Oh boy. Okay, let's have it.
So I was speaking with my wife yesterday, and
Brag.
she said to me, how much credit do we take for the gifts that we give our son for Christmas this year? My son is 4 years old. What do we claim to be ours? What do we tell him is from Santa? And I
Sure.
had never even thought about this. I had always just assumed through my entire life that Santa gives all the gifts.
So when you were younger, your parents would write Santa on all of them. So they wouldn't write from mom or dad or
That
whatever
was
on
my
them?
memory of it. And then I asked my mother, and I'm like, hey, what did you do when I was a kid? And she said, I would tell you guys every year that we got you some gifts, Santa got you some gifts, and they
Yeah.
got mixed up.
Yeah, I think that's how most parents do. I remember specifically like opening stuff. Some would say Santa, some would say mom, dad, whatever. But
Mhm.
I might have talked about this before. It had to have been around 8 or 9 years old where I started picking up. This is a little bizarre. Why does Santa have different handwriting at every house? Like, you got to get on. The family's got to get. If you're trying to
Wait,
keep
what are
this
you getting
whole,
at?
if you're
What are you
trying to
getting
keep
at?
this whole charade up, you got to have one person write all the Santa stuff, or maybe type it out. I don't know. Bust out your old typewriter and make some tags. To me, that was the giveaway at like 8 or 9. I'm like, something's afoot here. There might be something going on here that maybe Santa's not all he's chalked up to be. So that's my advice to parents. Moreover, the deciding who who gets credit for what. Figure out the Santa handwriting from day one.
You know what a little old lady should do? Because I've always found that little old ladies have the best handwriting.
Stregonana.
They should start a business of writing for Santa.
It's not a bad idea. It's not a
My
bad idea.
grandmother, rest her soul,
Mhm.
the best handwriting I've ever seen. Beautiful cursive.
Yeah, my grandmother also has beautiful cursive.
Beautiful
And
cursive, right?
you know what? The only time cursive has ever helped anyone ever once on this planet is disguising themselves as Santa.
Little old ladies, best cursive in the world. So back to
Easily.
this. I had this question. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I asked our podcasting fathers, our
Mhm.
Fajas.
Yeah, our
I
founding
asked
fathers.
Rich Keefe and Daddy Davy, and I said, what do you fellas do? And I believe Keefe said that he would do one big gift from them to their kids, and then Santa does the rest. And then Davy will do, if it's something that's more technology based, it's from them. Like something that couldn't be cobbled would be from them.
That's
And
the
then
word for it.
toys or clothes is from Santa.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
the way I would play it is the one main thing they're asking for is from the parents. Everything
Yeah.
else is from Santy.
Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let him open all of his gifts first, and
Yeah.
then whatever thing he likes the best, that's
Yeah.
for me.
Gauge the audience response, right?
Right,
Yeah.
but I'm be like, "That's for me." Not even mom. Mom didn't wanna give that to you. That's for me.
You gotta chart it the whole time too, like,
No.
wait. Oh, a Yelp on that one. That's the early leader in the clubhouse.
One goo, three, yeah! Goo. Jaws 3. Goo. King of Queens. Goo. Meryl Streep. Goo. Entertainment.
I'm Goo.
And I am Mac.
Oh, and all you parents out there, please tell me what you do, because I do need some advice on this.
I feel like everyone's
Especially as
doing
he
the
gets
same
older.
thing. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a lot of advice to hand out here. I think everyone's doing the same thing.
I want the best advice and the best cursive handwriting. Can everyone please write us a note in cursive? I wanna see everyone's handwriting.
I mean, I wonder, so my, younger siblings who are 23, 22, and 19, they didn't learn cursive growing up.
No,
They
I think
started
we were the
teaching
last
them
gen. We were the
American
last cursive
Sign
gen.
Language.
Yeah.
So I wonder what their signatures look like. I don't think I've ever seen any of their signatures because that's the only way I use cursive is my signature. And even then, I made it my own. So there's like 3 letters in my signature that aren't the cursive letter. I just made them my own. So cursive was just completely useless, completely and utterly useless. For
Well, it's
200
useless
years,
now.
we're teaching people fucking cursive for no goddamn reason.
It was useful when there was no computers.
No, was never useful.
Tell us right now, was cursive ever useful? Mac, what are we talking about today?
Goo, today we are talking the latest entry into the Sony Spider-Man universe.
What? The
Uh,
latest and last?
Probably last. They're being a little coy about this whole scenario.
They're being
We're
cute.
talking about Kraven the Hunter today. This is the 6th entry into the Sony Spider-Man universe, and for my hopes and dreams, I hope this is the final entry into the Sony Spider-Man
Did you
universe.
see the report that they've been able to use Spider-Man this entire time, and they're
Yeah.
like, we don't need him.
Thank God they didn't. It would have just butchered the whole Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Well, but maybe you could have made these villains actually villains.
The other thing here, Goo, is it's not technically dead because technically speaking here, officially speaking, the Spider-Verse movies are in this universe.
Yes.
Or in this, playground. Additionally, we do have the Spider Noir series coming maybe next year that is also in this universe. So it's not totally dead yet.
And fingers
hopefully-
crossed, Kraven goes back in time and fights him.
Yeah, hopefully they put this out of its misery at some point. Also, there was some Spider-Verse news this past week that it's not coming out in 2025. That's delayed yet again. I don't quite understand that, but so be
I think
it.
it's hard to animate. And they don't want bad reports like last time where they were like, we worked our animators to the bone.
I don't think it's well, okay, that's fair. I mean, it's clearly hard to animate, but it shouldn't be hard enough that it's delayed 2 years, but I digress.
Do you know anything
Goo,
about the situation?
I know all of the situations. Goo, Kraven the Hunter this week.
I'm a well-read person who knows cursive. Of course, I know all about the situations.
In its opening weekend, Goo, 11 million at the domestic box office, one of the worst comic book openings of all time. $4 million less than Madam Web. So that's really, really bad. Worldwide, Goo, 26 million.
Let me tell you why it deserves that. This movie...
I think we all know why it deserves it.
Let me tell you why. The main reason why. This movie is fucking lazy.
This movie is bad in a way that's different than Madam Web. It is also, as much as Kraven is a great Spider-Man villain, he's not like the most known Spider-Man villain. And on top of it, we're 6 movies into this Sony Spider-Man universe, and we don't have a Spider-Man. So there's nothing holding people to this universe. We just finished our 3rd and final Venom movie. That's done. So this is like a hope and a dream at the end from Sony that we're like, oh, we got one last shot. We're going to make this dark, gritty, R-rated comic book movie and hopefully save this SSU. And boy, did that not work.
No, but you just said this is our 6th movie with a Spider-Man villain, like a villain origin story or a villain story. And Venom makes a little bit of sense to make him more of a hero, make him an anti-hero. That's what he is in the comics. That's what people kind of recognize him as now. It would make more sense if Spider-Man was in this universe for Venom. But for the other ones like Morbius or for Kraven, they're just bad guys. And in these stories, they're good guys. They're the heroes of their story.
Because you're doing these villain origin stories, at some point in a movie, in a story, you got to root for someone or root against someone. And so they've tried to make these Spider-Man outright villains into anti-heroes the way Venom kind of is, but these characters aren't. And it simply doesn't work because, to be a good villain, we don't really have to root for you. We just have to understand where you're coming from.
We just saw the fucking Penguin.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The Penguin and the first Joker is a pretty good example too. Like that's a villain origin story that is setting him up, and we don't love it, but we understand it. Penguin, I think, is perfect for you telling an in-universe character story of a villain that you're kind of rooting for, but also being like, I don't really like this guy.
Yeah, and Sony just never really understood that. So not only were they going up against the fact that the Spider-Man villains are being introduced without Spider-Man, sans Spider-Man, they're also oddly trying to make us root for these villains in a way that no one's ever wanted to root for a villain. So they dropped the ball from the beginning. And Venom comes out in 2018, which sort of jumpstarts this universe, which they were planning to jumpstart 4 or 5 years earlier after the Amazing Spider-Man 2. They were planning the Sinister Six.
They had a villain closet, yeah.
Yeah, and it just never came to fruition. And then we end up with Venom 4 or 5 years later. And Venom does really well. Critics hate it, but it does really well with audiences. And so they're like, oh shit, we got to capitalize on this theme we've picked up here. And from that point, Goo, like Venom, I didn't mind. I somewhat enjoyed. It's not the greatest movie in the world. From that point on, they never made one more good movie. It was all bad after that. And it was like, okay, you would have thought that they're kicking off this Sony Spider-Man universe, and maybe they didn't think they were. You would have thought they had this overarching plan. And it's clear now that they never had an overarching plan, never had this diagram of where they're going to go. They were just like, oh, Venom did well. Now we have to jumpstart other shit.
You could argue that these movies have gotten worse. Each movie worse than the last. Now, I would say that Madam Web is a worse movie than this, but I also love Madam Web. I would also argue that Venom 3 is better than Venom 2, but I don't care. This movie really reminds me of Morbius, and that's an easy one to link to, where it's really bad, but it's incredibly boring and not fun in a bad way. Morbius might have some more of that because Jared Leto is just chewing shit up, but this is very similar. They just slapped an R rating on it, and they're like, y'all like CGI blood?
I actually think Morbius is like significantly better than this movie. And Morbius,
put that on the DVD for Morbius.
Good.
Significantly better than Kraven.
What you were saying about this movie, before recording, and we were texting a little bit, is how I feel about Morbius. It's lazy. There's really not much there. It's boring. This movie's outright bad, like really bad. And I don't feel that way about Morbius.
This movie's really bad, but I had no fun watching it. Like I enjoy watching bad movies because there's usually some fun stuff in there. This one did have like one or two lines that were borderline there, but this had no fun to it at all. Even the kills, they weren't that good.
Yeah. All right.
Come on.
Kraven the Hunter is an R-rated action and thriller subgenre here. Goo, we got another new one that I'm going to add to the top of the list here. One-person army action. So I guess
Rambo.
This is like,
it's like Rambo.
Predator type of thing. Yeah. Also, of course, superhero comic book subgenre.
I would also say for the genre of superhero, this is the worst kind of superhero movie.
How do you mean?
In the fact that it came out in 2024. And you could watch it and say, this came out in 2006. Like, there's no progress from the last 20 years of, I'll say filmmaking. You don't have to, use that literally. But, like, from the last 20 years of movies that we got, and even R-rated comic book movies that we got, where you have a blueprint, this is just the laziest, just joyless piece of garbage that you could possibly watch, where there's nothing to it. And the last 20 minutes, am I wrong? It felt like 20 minutes. It was a 20-minute sequel setup.
I think what you're saying sort of encapsulates this whole universe. Even going back to Venom, which I liked more than most, this whole Sony foray into comic book movies, these last 6, you could say they all came out in 2006 and people would believe you. And in 2006, I don't even know if people would like them. Like that's how bad this universe ended up being. And
how does it compare to the Fantastic Four? How does it compare to Fantastic Four Silver Surfer?
Right. It's in that same.
The CGI in this, the animals all looked like trash.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
I couldn't believe it.
100%.
This is a superhero. I'm going to call him a hero because he's a hero in this. Fucking Nature Boy. He's Aquaman on land.
Woo!
The animals are so disturbingly awful looking. Where did the money go?
Goo, can you explain to me? And
yes,
I'll get into the nuts and
bolts. By the way,
here
I wasn't even that mad about this movie. Talking about it now.
It's true. Yeah. Can you explain to me why he gets mauled by a lion at one point in this movie and the lion just lets him go?
It's because his father told him he's not a man.
Dude, this movie is 127 minutes. It feels like 3 hours. I started texting you about an hour in. I considered leaving during this, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to whip my
You're
phone.
obligated. By contract, you have to finish the movie.
Yeah, that's how bad this movie is. On Rotten Tomatoes, 15% from the critics, 73% from the audience. Now, if you're talking,
which is wild,
compared against the rest of the Sony Spider-Man universe, second worst critic rating, third worst audience rating. To be fair, they all didn't do well outside of the Venom movies, audience-wise. None of them did well critic-wise. On Metacritic, a 35, tied for second worst. The only one worse is Madam Web. This just, again, like, the critics hated this Sony Spider-Man universe. The audience was okay with a lot of it, which is, I guess, the audience is easy to please these days. This movie is written by 3 people: Richard Wenk, Art,
Nice.
and then a writing team of Art Markham and Matt Holloway. Richard Wenk is a writer on The Mechanic, Expendables 2, The Equalizer, Magnificent Seven, Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, Equalizer 2, and Equalizer 3. So clearly they brought him in for the R-rated action scenes here, right?
Yeah.
That's where his influence came in. And I guess maybe the best thing about this movie is the R-rated action scenes, but not really, because there was, I don't know, they were just there. They just existed. There was no build up to them. Upcoming, if you're interested in subpar R-rated action
I'm not.
scenes,
Go ahead.
he's doing Lethal Weapon 5 and something called The Last Mission. The other 2 here, Art Markham and Matt Holloway, were writers on Iron Man, first Iron Man movie, Goose. So they got one. Then they did Punisher Warzone, Transformers The Last Night, Men in Black International, and Uncharted. So they're really just hanging their hats on Iron Man there. So in general,
That's a real bad list.
yeah, these 3 should not write movies ever again. This movie is directed by J.C. Chandor, who I could have swore did something. Maybe it was a television series. I swear I recognize this name. But on IMDb, you may know him from Margin Call, which I think he got an Oscar for script writing like a decade or 15 years
Nice.
ago. And then Most Violent Fear, which is a movie you might recognize. That was Oscar Isaac and one of the redheads there from Hollywood. What's her name? Jessica Chastain.
Okay.
They in the same vein there.
Yeah.
Upcoming, doing something called The Robber and the couple television series. In general, direction, I don't know. I couldn't even focus on direction and cinematography in this movie because the writing was so bad.
The writing was really bad.
One of the worst written movies of all time. And it's
then
not
ADR
even like the big picture story plot. The in between, the character to character dialogue is the worst I have seen maybe ever. Really,
they
fucking
also added in so much audio in post. Now,
Yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
slightly better than Madam Web, but it was all very obvious, and they were just trying to fill so many holes.
bad. And it had to have been because they were probably trying some accent stuff live on set and it didn't work out. And so they
Either that or the story made less sense.
Yeah.
Even though this story pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's a pretty simplistic story. I'll give it credit for that. Synopsis: Kraven's complex relationship with his ruthless father, Nikolai Kravinoff, starts him down a path of vengeance with brutal consequences, motivating him to become not only the greatest hunter in the world, but also one of its most feared.
Now,
This
I
movie's-
know that the awards are supposed to be the Mac and Goo Awards, the Cinemac and Goovy Awards. We have a category this year for dumbest name, and it was supposed to be a real person's name.
Mhm.
I think Kravinoff has to be in there.
Well, it's probably his name from the comment.
I know
comics, right?
it definitely is, but seeing it written out and spoken is really stupid.
This movie stars ATJ Aaron Taylor Johnson as Sergei Kravinoff, aka Kraven the Hunter. Ariana Debose as Calypso Azili. Now, I don't want to speak illy about Ariana Debose because I'm sure it's the writing. It's definitely the writing.
It's definitely the writing.
She's been a successful actress up until this point. Her character and her acting was fucking terrible in this movie.
I would
Really,
argue,
really fucking bad.
So look at the rest of this list.
Yeah.
And then also if you look at IMDb, most of the list, I would say 98% of this movie is men, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I feel like they added in as much of her as possible to be like, shoot, we need a woman in
We
this.
forgot about women in our world.
And then, how do women speak? I don't know.
Also in here is Fred Heckinger as Dmitry Kravinoff, Sergei's half brother. And the whole movie, I'm like, where is this guy from? How do I recognize him?
You
He's
just
the-
saw him.
I know he's the Inny
You
Mini
just
Emperor
saw him.
from Gladiator
Yeah.
2. It was so distracting the whole time because I'm like, I know him. I couldn't place him till after the movie.
I was like,
which
this guy plays a sniveling weasel.
he's a little
Is
itty
he
bitty of a man.
well? I'm not even sure. I
Little
don't like
Polly
it.
Pocket of a fella.
He's a little Polly Pocket. He's a Mad Max.
Yeah, there you go. Alessandro Nivola as Alexei Sistovich, aka the Rhino, and he
Spoilers.
he was playing a different character. This is not the Rhino. I don't know who this is.
Favorite line in the movie, and this is a Madam Web-like line of, do you know why they call me the Rhino? And then he just takes his little, feed bag out of his side. Oh, do they call you the Rhino because you turn into a rhino? You quite literally turn into a rhino. Is that why they call you the Rhino?
I
There's no
laughed.
hidden context to this?
I laughed out loud at one point when he just loudly hissed about 2/3 of the way through the movie. I don't
Yeah.
know where the fuck that came from. I don't know what decision that was, but that
Have
was
you ever spoken to a
insane.
rhino? You ever
So
read a zoo book?
I was in the movie theater with 3 other people, a couple sitting like 5 seats down from me and then someone behind me. And there were 2 or 3 different points where all 4 of us were laughing at this movie. Laughing at it, not with it, at it. It was that bad at points. Not as bad as Madam Web, don't get me wrong, but
Yes.
it did have some terrible moments. Goo, Christopher Abbott, who you would recognize from the TV series Girls, plays a character called the Foreigner in here, and I don't know what this person's powers are. I've never heard of this character. I don't know what they can and can't do. Apparently they can count to 3, and during those 3 seconds they can manipulate time and move.
Okay, they can
However,
move really fast, right? That's
they
kind of
can
what I
move like
picked
the
up.
Flash.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. His character was completely inconsequential. Russell Crowe plays the father, Nikolai Kravinoff, and then Yuri, bear with me on this one, Yuri Kolokolnikov as Semyon
Nice.
Cherney. He was the gangster in the prison that Kraven kills in the first 8 minutes here. That's all you really need to know about this movie. I actually think Aaron Taylor Johnson did like an okay job here.
Yeah.
Just the character wasn't good. Everyone else is terrible in this movie, but particularly, and again, I can't really blame her because she's thrown in the fire. Ariana Debose, other than Dakota Johnson, might have been the worst female character I've seen all year.
It's once again someone being like, we need to put a female in this, and then realizing that they've never spoken to one.
I don't know what they did, Goo, but you hear the name Calypso 135 times in this movie. And this is what I'm talking about. The dialogue of this movie is so bad. Like, you and I talking to each other, you just address each other when you're in the same room.
Wrong.
I don't start every sentence with
as
Goo.
someone who has listened to every one of our podcasts,
On this
you start
podcast, I
every
do it.
sentence with Goo.
Yes,
I
on this
start every sentence with
podcast.
Mac to remind the people who we are.
On the podcast, we do it because it's somewhat comical. When you're just having a regular conversation in a room with just 2 people, you don't use their name at the
I
beginning
do it
of
out of
every
necessity.
sentence.
I don't do it for comic reasons.
When we're introduced to Calypso in this movie, Goo, her and her grandmother are having a conversation, and her grandmother says Calypso. It had to have been 15 times.
Well, she was
It's
writing in cursive, and she wanted to
jarring.
spell it right. That was the main thing.
Once again, about an hour into this movie, which was right about at the end of like the background young days, I started texting Goo because I'm like, this movie is fucking bad. I nearly walked out. My phone was out and I didn't even care. It is unequivocally some of the worst movie dialogue of all time, ever.
The flashback is the worst origin story anything that we have seen on film.
So
the
he gets
flashback
shot.
was trashback.
Or does he get shot? No. The lion gets shot, and then the lion's blood drips into the wound from the lion. And then he gets a little potion.
Talk it out. Yep, talk it out. Yeah.
Then he gets a little potion from Calypso, who apparently wasn't afraid of the lion that just waltzed away. And that's how he becomes Kraven.
He becomes Nature Boy. He
terrible.
becomes Little Lion Boy, the Little Lion Man that that band sings about.
Come on, Mumford & Sons.
And I had to double check after the movie, being like, I don't think that's what Kraven is supposed to be.
Not as brave as you were at the start.
Kraven is supposed to be this huntsman. His brother's name is Mike, who was always searching for the ultimate game. His main thing in the comics,
next bigger and badder prey.
Yes, is that he wants to hunt Spider-Man. Like that's his big thing, right?
Well, you saw in here it's his biggest fear as well.
Right. No, but it would have made more sense if it was the other way around, where the Rhino was in complete fear of Kraven, not because he's on a list, because Kraven has that thirst for hunting and he knows that there's a human rhino hybrid, and that seems like fun. So, like, he needs to have fun while hunting, not because, he stole my brother, whatever the fuck it is.
This portrayal of the Rhino is like demonstrably worse than Paul Giamatti's Rhino at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2. This iteration is so fucking bad. But I don't even want to talk about that yet. I will save that for some spoilers.
I am a rhino now? It's because your father told me I was a weak man, so I went to this doctor. He made me a monster.
The most frustrating thing about this movie is that they get the R rating, right? So
Yeah,
you're like, okay,
yeah.
they can have fun. But them giving this movie the R rating and not doing it to any of the 3 Venom movies, which had a chance to be really good if it had gotten an R rating, is so fucking frustrating. Because what they did instead with this is like, all right, we got the R rating. We're going to say fuck a bunch of times, and they're just going to have like 3 scenes of brutal kills. We don't know what the rest of the movie is going to be, but we got it. We got the R. We're going to do that.
It.
And they built it out from there, and you can tell that's what they did. And it's incredibly frustrating. Really, really frustrating.
Am I crazy? Or was Russell Crowe the best character in this movie?
I'm pretty sure Russell Crowe was drunk the whole time. Like he
Possibly,
just showed up on
he was
set for
drinking a lot
weeks.
of what looked like vodka. It might have been real vodka.
He just drank, did a Russian accent or a pseudo-Russian accent, and then he left set. And that was
just
that.
Constantly, what are you, a woman? Men are strong, women weak. In Russia, vodka drink you.
It was like I couldn't believe that, like, in the year 2024, the year of our Lord, 6 movies into this universe, that the writing was this bad.
The
and
writing
again,
is bad.
Madam Web's writing is bad story-wise. What happens, the events. And the dialogue's bad there too.
The dialogue is more fun though.
The dialogue in this movie, like the story and the plot here somewhat makes sense. The dialogue is so fucking bad. It's like it was written by like a 12-year-old boy that like didn't like, oh, this is how adults talk. Like the people that wrote this movie have never been involved in an adult conversation in their lives.
Oh, why is he running fast? Because a lion bled into him, you fucking idiot. Shall we get into the nonagon? The nonsensagon? Ooh. Fun factor. There's none. There is no fun.
I started having fun when I realized the other 3 people in the movie were laughing at the same things I were, but it was only like 2 or 3 things.
It was group fun.
It was, it was a group effort. And I was thinking about laughing, but I also was like, I don't like making noise in the theater, even though I had already taken my phone out. And then the female, like,
I had already taken my pants off.
She like the female, like 6 seats down,
Yeah.
couldn't contain it after one of the things. She just like burst out in laughter. And then I was like, all right, we can have some fun here.
Borometer, wildly boring.
The first hour of this movie is incredibly boring. And
I was saying, let me stop you right there. After that first hour, though, more bore.
But it was more. There is more bore, but it was more boring the first hour.
Okay, if we're looking at the bell curve of boring, first
Still
hour, real.
bore.
No, like I said, the origin story in it, fucking horrible.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like. And I guess we'll get to this in spoilers.
Satisfactor. I was not satisfied by this movie at all, and if anything, it made me sad. SAD that I had wasted my time.
Yeah, for an R-rated comic book movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I really like, it to be this bad, did make me sad. SAD.
Like they should have thrown him a bone here because they had so much ADR anyways. That's audio that you add in post. That they should have let him say, "Go watch Nosferatu in 2 weeks. I'm better in that."
They should have let him fuck around with the Russian accent, you know?
Yeah.
You might, if it's the movie's going to be this bad, let him have a bad Russian accent.
Let him do Yakov Smirnoff. Let him do what I've been doing this whole time. Halloween. I will never, ever watch this again. I've rewatched Madam Web twice now. I have rewatched Madam Web twice now. I watched it on a plane. It was a palate cleanser on the plane.
Yeah, this movie is terrible. There's nothing to rewatch in here. Nothing.
Waterworld, the Aquata World. Is this better or worse than the 1995 classic Waterworld? And it is way worse.
Yeah, if Madam Web's at the center of the earth, so then maybe you have fun again with the lava. This is sitting at the bottom of the ocean floor. This is
the
bad
action from the 1995 movie better than action in the 2024 movie.
Yeah, and admittedly, I did like the bear trap kill, but that was about it in this movie.
Plemonade. When life gives you plemons, you make plemonade. And Russell Crowe was the best actor in this movie.
He didn't make Plemonade, though. He didn't fucking
No
make
one made Plemonade. No one did.
Yeah, I don't know.
Remember when he was getting shot at and he picked up the smaller, weaker man and he used him as a shield? I like that.
I guess like
Actually, you know bullets. You understand how fucking weaponry works. If you hold up someone while being shot at, will they block the bullets or will the bullets go through them and then hit you?
it depends what bullet is being fired and what gun is firing them. A lot of
Do you
variables.
think those look like pretty high caliber guns?
It could definitely rip through, and then it maybe might hurt you. I don't know. I don't know.
You told me at the beginning of this episode that you know everything. And so far, you've known nothing.
There's nothing to know in this movie. There's nothing to know.
Guys, go on X right now. Go on Instagram. Tell us, can you block bullets with a human body without being affected?
Some you can, yes.
You don't tear your gooch, okay? Get off the fence. Yes or no? Can
No,
you
there's
eat the moon if it's made out of barbecue spare ribs? Or would you? Not could you. The answer is obviously yes, you could. You could eat the
definitely
moon right
would.
now if it's made out of rocks. I'm not going to tell you to, but you could. Max Credit Union. Who are you giving credit to?
I guess Aaron Taylor Johnson for trying his darndest.
No,
but man,
he wasn't trying. I don't think he
was trying. Dude, did you see his fucking abdomen? Come on,
Look,
he tried.
okay, obviously he looked great. But what
looked
I'm saying, though,
unbelievable.
so you are underselling him and his talent by saying that he's trying in this. Don't do that.
I think he tried. I think when he signed up for this movie, he thought there'd be something here. He tried.
You heard it there
I think
first.
he
Mac
tried.
thinks that Aaron Taylor Johnson is a shitty actor.
No, I think he tried. The writing, Goo. Writing.
Look,
again.
the writing deserves all of the blame. Sony Pictures deserves all of the blame. Spam deserves all of the blame.
Well,
But don't give people credit for being
no,
shitty.
No, because in direct contrast, the co-star, Ariana Debose, notable trier, doesn't try in this movie. She's fucking terrible.
That's because she can't. She can't try in this.
I don't know. I mean, you might be right.
Pants Tent City, Excite Bike Mania. And I will say that the buildup to finally getting the rhino, I'm like, okay, let's fucking see this rhino. Let's see this stupid battle that's been teased a couple times.
Yeah, this stupid fucking rhino that we saw in the trailer, yet somehow they're saving for the final 15 minutes
And
of the
then
movie.
finally they showed it, and they showed the battle, and I'm like, this is what we've been building toward this entire time? This is it? Yikes.
Again, I liked the guy taking the bear trap to the head. That was solid. That was about the only time the R rating was worth it. Everything else there's no credit to be delved out here. This movie's terrible.
It is, but did you get a little pants tent when he put on the vest at the end? And he's like, maybe I'm not a good guy. Maybe I am a bad guy because I have this
he leans
vest
back
on.
like some people drive,
Like how I drive with two hands on the wheel like this.
Going 2 miles per hour below the speed limit.
Well, you don't want to go too fast.
Too furious.
Yeah, right. Mac, for those of you tardy to the Mac and Goo party, we rate everything on a 40 hot dog rating system. The animal CGI, I thought that was complete dookie. You mentioned the action, the R-rated action. The editing on the action was nauseating. I hated it. It looked terrible. It's an uninteresting story. It's poorly paced, and there's no humor. Where's the fun in this? It's a comic book movie. What are we doing? And it's not bad enough to be fun. If you're going to be bad, be bad. Just accept it. Be shitty. It reminds me a lot, and I'm saying, like, Black Adam's better than this, but it reminds me how just cookie cutter, and they're like, well, I think the people will like this. Let's just do this shit. And it doesn't pay off at all.
No.
This is the worst of what comic book movies have to offer. There's nothing new. It thinks it's edgy, and it makes a fan favorite villain a hero. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's have people cheer for him.
Right.
And then the last 20-ish minutes, I don't know how fucking time works anymore, is just to set up a sequel. To what? What are we setting up a sequel to?
Right. Yeah, the Chameleon solo movie.
I can't wait to see that sniveling weasel back on screen.
Which, by the way, you talk about the CGI with the animals, the CGI Chameleon, some of the worst we've ever seen. That was
But couldn't you tell the entire time he could do voices? He was doing the voices the entire time. I'm like, this is a young fucking Bill Hader up there.
He is so distractingly little that you think that he's CGI'd little.
And for some reason, and I don't know if his hands are small, but my eyes were really just drawn to his hands because I felt like they were tiny, like Uncle Jack on It's Always Sunny. He should have put giant fake hands on.
What is your hot dog rating for this movie?
I don't know.
Okay.
I watched this a week ago, and I hate it. But I still like it more than Kinds of Kindness and Joker because of the promise that I was given with those movies.
Okay. So definitively you have 3 worse movies than this on the year.
Right. But my final movie, Madam Web, I would take over almost any movie on the year. Over 90% of the movies on the year.
Fair enough.
I'll say 12 hot dogs.
Oh,
13?
motherfucker.
No,
motherfucker.
I'm going to go one higher than you because you hated it more than me. You texted me at the time being like, this is the worst fucking thing ever. Yeah. I think it's better than worse, but also worse than better. Done. Put that on the DVD cover.
Gil, this is
What's
everything. Up? This is fucking everything. I have to use your name. Calypso, this is everything. Everything I've always been worried about with R-rated comic book movies. They thought just having a few gory scenes and some swears would
and not even
people.
Al Gore.
So they built this movie around the few action set pieces and some swears and just filled in the rest from there, resulting in one of the worst written movies ever. Ever.
Can you imagine a giant Kraven timeline where they're like action set piece, and then fuck throughout the timeline? They're like, okay, guys, we got to fill in the rest.
That's pretty much what happened here.
Wow.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about like worst written movie of the year. It's one of the worst movies, written movies of the decade, of all time, of the millennium. Like, again, I agree with you. Madam Web is worse. Don't get me wrong. The characters in Madam Web do so many incredibly dumb things that isn't quite present here. They just talk stupid here. This movie is more like what the characters are saying is written again by a child. So the overall plot isn't as dumb as something like Madam Web, but the in-between shit is maybe worse. It's awful. Aaron Taylor Johnson is Aaron Taylor Johnson. I really don't have too many issues with things he did, but everything else in this movie is bad. Ariana Debose's Calypso is fucking terrible. Every single thing that's even involving her is terrible. The new spin on the Rhino.
I'm just telling you, stop blaming her. Stop bringing up her name. Just bring up the character's name and blame the writers for it. I don't think no one could have done it. You could have had Meryl Streep play fucking Calypso, and it wouldn't matter.
Russell Crowe's here, Goose. So how about that? Goo, I have it at 12 hot dogs in honor of how many abs Aaron Taylor Johnson shows us in this movie. It's my second worst movie of 2024. Only Madam Web is below this. But good riddance, right? Good riddance to the Sony Spider-Man universe. Like something unpredictable, but in the end, there's right. I hope you had the time of your life. Fucking put a bullet either in my brain or whoever is creating these movies' brains. This is like at least the last Venom movie, there's some like fun to be had. There's all sorts of suits and powers. This movie is so devoid of fun. Like it just sucked the will to live out of me. Like it just truly put a stamp on the end of this fucking universe.
You know who you couldn't put a bullet into? Spoilers. The Rhino. But you know what you could do? You could Death Star him and then Mufasa him.
Yeah. So he has this one glaring weakness. He's got to put his fucking
He's got a giant hole that you can put your finger into.
His hole into his abdomen. So that was pretty glaring. You knew that was going to play up. But so yeah, the way he goes out is dumb, obviously, but the character's dumb. At that point, you don't even care what happens in the movie.
He gets hit by trucks. He gets blasted by guns. And then what happens? Wildebeest.
I have some things here. So one of the laugh out loud moments is when you think that Kraven is about to die at the hands of the foreigner. And then Calypso, he's counting, goes 1, 2, as he does in the movie. And then Calypso goes 3, motherfucker. And shoots him in the face with an arrow.
But she foreshadowed. You said the writing sucks. They foreshadowed with the writing that she had used a bow and arrow before.
Somehow, Goo, we find out in this movie that Kraven's mom went nuts. And one of the big reveals in this movie is that she went nuts because of spiders. Spiders drove her insane. And this is also somehow Kraven's biggest fear.
That was the time. And I'm not saying don't introduce Spider-Man. Let's go all out. Let's get fucking nuts. Introduce Madam Web into this movie. Or introduce Madam Web's mom who went to the jungle to study spiders.
No, give me a big Wild West spider. How about that?
What is it?
Give me a big Wild West spider.
Oh my God, that's even better. Have a giant mechanical spider in here and Will Smith pops in as well.
The major Easter egg we get in here at Goo is the doctor in New York that turns Rhino into Rhino and ultimately turns Chameleon into Chameleon, which again, the Chameleon CGI at the end was fucking terrible, is Mike Warren or Miles Warren, aka the Jackal, who's also another character in comic books. No one cares about that. I had a real issue, and again, the writing's bad, but I had a real issue. What did we get? A time jump of what, like 10 years in this movie? So the Kravinoffs, when they go on that hunting trip with their father in Africa, meet the guy that plays Rhino, eventually turns into the Rhino. And it's not like they're 6 years old and wouldn't remember this fellow. He looks exactly the same.
To be fair,
and they're
though,
like 15. They would have clearly remembered who the fuck this guy was.
Let me stop you right there. That was the day that Kraven was attacked by a lion. I feel like that would have been the focus of my day. I wouldn't have remembered this weak man who was not strong enough to be like my father.
So cut to the 10-year time jump, right? Alexei, aka the Rhino, and his men kidnap Dmitri. Sergei was not in the building. They kidnapped Dmitri, and Dmitri's like, I don't remember you. I don't know who you are. And
because his brother was attacked by a lion on that day. That would be the tentpole moment of that day for me.
Rhino says in response to, I don't remember you, you wouldn't. My hair was different. And then
that's
there's a
the
pause.
Best joke in the movie. Don't you snivel at their jokes.
That's me and my three friends were laughing. We had a good old time at that point. Dude, this movie is so bad. There's no post credits. There's nothing. This universe is dead. Hopefully.
Oh my God.
I'm glad it's over. I'm fucking
14 hot dogs. 14 hot dogs. I forgot this. Thank you for bringing this up. No post-credit scene. Don't get me wrong. I had to sit through the credits anyways.
Yeah.
But there were no post-credit scenes. Thumbs up. 14 hot dogs.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still at 12. This movie is fucking terrible, but somehow still better than Madam Web.
Let's get into Maxac.
And Maxac could be anything. It could be a boat. And this week, since we just got Kraven, that could be the last of the spam movies, the Sony Pictures in association with Marvel, which is still the funniest logo ever, where they put Marvel up first and then very small in association with. I will ask you, Mac, to please rank the 6 live action shitty movies.
So once again, there was a plan at some point a decade ago to tie this into the Garfield movies. They never did that, and instead we got this. So we get Venom 2018, Venom Let There Be Carnage 2021, Morbius 2022, and then we got 3 this year: Madam Web, Venom: The Last Dance, and Kraven the Hunter. To me, head and shoulders above everything else in this universe is the first Venom movie. I think I gave it 30 originally. Might be down a couple dogs, but still head and shoulders above everything else in this universe. Then I think we have a second or middle tier where you have Morbius and the 2 Venom sequels they exist. There's some good, there's some bad. Well, Morbius is just kind of there.
No, Morbius brought the Vulture into this universe and then destroyed him because now he can't come back to the MCU.
Those movies are not good. They're not as bad as the 2 terrible movies in this universe. Madam Web and Kraven, actually, you could even have them in their own tiers, but these 2 movies, to me, are so far below even those shitty movies of Morbius, The Last Dance, and Let There Be Carnage. Like, I cannot believe that 3 of these movies came out this year, and 2 of them are 2 of the worst movies I've ever seen.
You know what? They should have really leaned in on a post-credit scene of Michael Keaton showing up and just being like, how the fuck do I keep showing up in these things? Like, let him swear and make a joke.
Because this movie is so boring and so forgettable, I'm not going to remember it in the pantheon of all-time bad movies like I will Madam Web. But it deserves mention. It definitely deserves mention. This movie is fucking tremendously bad.
Okay, so if I'm going to make my tiers, at the top, the most rewatchable best movie of the bunch is Madam Web. I love that movie. Nothing in this universe even comes close to making me want to watch again. So no thank you to that. I would then put Venom of like, it's a cromulent movie. It's not great. It definitely has a lot of holes. It really does need Spider-Man for an origin story for Venom, but it's Goo v. Goo. So how could Goo pass up on that? Then I would put The Last Dance after that, because we're just getting into a pile of shit now.
Yep.
Last Dance had 15 minutes that I enjoyed of him doing a buddy cop road trip through Vegas. I would take that. Then I go with Let There Be Carnage. And keep this in mind. Let There Be Carnage, I think, is the loudest movie of all time, and I don't like it.
Yep.
But here we are.
Sure.
Then I go Morbius, because Morbius is bland, boring, but Jared Leto walked with crutches off the set just to try to be like this character and annoyed the entire crew by doing it. And then we go to Kraven the Hunter that I believe has nothing to offer.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Goo, looking forward, if this universe does somehow still exist going forward, you still have that third Spider-Verse movie. Really interesting thing here. So they are still making this Spider Noir series starring Nick Cage. That's going to be coming to MGM Plus. Why the fuck are
Where
they
it
doing
belongs.
that?
Where
What
it
the-
belongs.
No one has that. Like that. That is so fucking annoying. Like what? Like yet again, let's make yet another bad decision. Like how the fuck does that end up on MGM Plus? Like
Where else would Sony put it?
I'm just
Where would
so
Sony put it?
over and Sony has built up so much goodwill with the video games
Oh,
and
so-
the PlayStation. Like
You paused for too long there for a second. I'm like, where is this goodwill coming from?
and even the two Garfield movies I like more than most people. And obviously you have the original Raimi movies, but holy shit, are they fucking shooting themselves in the foot with these movies? Just quit it. Just quit it. Let Marvel do their thing. Let the MCU do their thing and just reap some of the benefits from that. You don't need to do your own thing.
Oh, I introduced my son to the Spider-Man game that came out for the PS4 and then remastered for PS5. And god damn it, does it look good.
It's so fun.
It's
Such a
so
fun
fun. There was a bit too many restrictions on it at the beginning for him because he just wanted to swing around New York. He's 4
Yeah.
years old. He just wanted to go to
Chuckville.
Times Square. He wanted to go to the zoo, but he had to go on a mission. He didn't want to go on a mission. Luckily, Astro Boy is free on the PS5 and Astrobot, sorry. He had the time of his life for the next 3 hours.
There's a second game too. Were you playing the first or the second game?
Whichever one's free on the system.
There's two Astrobot games. Yeah, they came out with a second one. So the
Is
second
that
one,
one? What?
yeah,
Where is
there's
it?
two games.
Is it
Well,
also
I
free?
think the first one came out with PS4, maybe.
Is it also free?
Yeah, they're all free. They're all free all the time.
Oh my god!
The second one. So I was watching my nephew play it the other day. Who's 5, a year older than Rafi.
Mhm.
And he loves Astrobot, loves it, and he's at which I'm sure Rafi will be at in a year. I watched him play Spider-Man 2. He doesn't look up or look down. He's playing like it's intuitive for him. He can actually play the game, which blows my mind. Stunning.
As opposed to me, where I'm looking down and using my fingers like this and pointing like that, like I'm trying to type something. Dear Sony, I did not like your movie, Kraven. No, it's Kraven with a K.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I'm so upset with this movie because I shouldn't have expected it to be good. But I guess them holding back stuff from us and me loving Aaron Taylor Johnson set my expectations, I guess, way too expecting a 24 dog movie was apparently way too fucking high for this.
I think what I'm most upset about is that there are more movies coming out now, like movies around Christmas time, where I need to ask my wife, I'm like, hey, there's a movie coming out, there's a screening coming out. I would like to go and see it. And then she'd be like, well, you went to that one 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, fuck, I wasted my screening on Morbius. I wasted my away time on Morbius.
Goo, also, just to throw an addendum on this whole thing, you wouldn't shut the fuck up about Hot Frosty the other day, so I watched it.
Oh,
better.
how was it?
It's better than this movie.
You would take, actually, I have Hot Frosty above it too. Did you laugh at anything?
That movie's fucking terrible too, but at least
It's
that
horrible.
movie is bad in the way a Netflix movie should be bad.
But didn't you feel bad seeing all of our forgotten heroes of sitcom past up on screen, like pulling teeth, trying to make you
I
laugh,
think
and
that's
none of
what-
them are funny?
Pushed it up a little bit over this, as you have notable actors trying a little bit. You also fucking lied to me. Craig Robinson plays keyboard like 10 minutes into the movie.
I know. I drove by Mac's house the day after that, and he had snow on his front lawn, and he started making this real big booty snowman. And then he's
Hoping
trying
it
to
would come to life.
come to life. This giant rack of a snowman.
I will say, I think it's because she does 35 Hallmark movies a year. Lacey Chabert looks tired. She looks
right?
tired.
I told you that, and you were like, I told you she's meh.
She looks
Not
tired.
to
Yeah.
bring someone down. Have you
needs a
seen the
break.
Lindsay Lohan one yet?
I have not. Did you
I
see
think
the
you would actually
nod?
like it.
Did you see the nod to that movie in this
No.
movie? Oh,
No.
she's like, "Oh, that looks like a girl I went to high school with."
I think that
'Cause
you would actually like that movie
okay.
because you're
All right.
stupid.
Well, that's true.
All right, Mac, where can the people find us?
You can find us on Twitter and on Instagram at Mac and Goo Podcast. Every other platform, we are Mac ampersand Goo. That's Mac Shift 7 Goo. That includes Facebook, Stitcher, TuneIn, Cashbox, Spreaker, Google Play, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify, but more importantly, we're on Apple Podcasts. Get on there, rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars. If you do that, we'll get you a free Mac and Goo t-shirt from the folks over at Watertown Sportswear. That's Watertown Sportswear, 34 Mount Auburn Street in Watertown, watertownsportswear.com. Expert screen printing and embroidery.
tpublic.com, merch. Still time to buy merch. I think you can still get it before Christmas. Don't quote me, but just go buy stuff. Who cares?
Sure.
That's what the holidays are all about. Buy yourself stuff. Check us out at the end of the week for News Dump. We have tons of
Superman
Chris
trailer.
Evans coming back. We have Superman trailer. There's a lot that's going to be happening before the end of the week, so please join us then. Then I don't know what we're going to do after that. Next week is Christmas, but it's in the middle of the week, so it shouldn't affect our schedule too much.
Yeah, we'll have maybe it'll be a double box thumbs up Magoo week. I don't know. We got movies in the pipeline here. We might. Is there a screening tonight?
But I already told you that I've wasted my screening time on Kraven, so I'm not allowed to see any more movies this year.
I know, and I've missed like 3 or 4, so now I'm itching to get to a screening. So we're on opposite
So there
schedules
is a screening today. It's for Sonic 3, but or I can't make it because it starts at 5.
Oh, that is frustrating. Okay,
Yeah.
but that might mean less. Is it with real people?
I don't know.
All right. But 5,
All right.
what is that?
I know. It doesn't help me at all.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring my son. My son loves Sonic. Tuesdays are Goose Days. I abuse kangaroos. Bird.
Button.
Please flip the cassette over to side B to continue the adventure.
Now it's time for girls jumping on trampolines.